Okay guys, so I'm going to run through the why we research task in order to be able to help those who may not have been in class, or for those who might still be a little bit confused about what I'm asking you to do. So the why we research task is designed to make sure you understand why we put research or why we conduct research in our society, but it's also so that you can describe and explain the different types of research processes or methodologies that we might use. So in class we've actually run through 5 different research processes or 5 different types of sources that may be used by researchers. These include primary sources, secondary sources and tertiary sources, as well as qualitative and quantitative sources. We've also run through an overview of what I'd actually like you to write in your task 1. And so what I've done is put this onto the website as a template with an example next to it as what I've written. However, what I'd really appreciate is if you didn't reproduce what I've written, because these are my examples of how I would use research. These are my examples how I think companies or governments might use this type of research. So what I need to see is what you think or what you understand, rather than just reproducing what I've done. Alright, so if we look at the template that is on the website, the first thing that I've got is an overview of the different types of research methods that you can use. So primary is from the time, secondary is from after the time, tertiary combines both primary and secondary sources. There is qualitative sources, which are ones that provide a lot of description, and quantitative sources are ones that provide raw data. Not all sources are individual and separate under those titles. For example, you could have a qualitative source that is an interview, and that's also a secondary source. So it depends on how you use the term, is how you'll incorporate that into your final task. It doesn't actually matter so long as you can provide a definition for the type of source you're talking about. So to set this out, what first you need to do is put in an introduction, and an introduction provides me with context, showing me that you understand what you're talking about. In the first sentence, what I'd like you to do is cover who, when and where. So in this one, I would like you to tell me who you're talking about, when you're talking about them, so when are they doing their research and what are they doing, which in this case is research. The next thing that I would like you to do in that sentence is talk about why and how. So what types of research are you going to talk about in this this report, and how can they be used in society? And the last one is a question as a statement. So the question is why we do research, and the last sentence of the introduction is you telling me why we conduct research in society. So what is the point of doing some sort of research? The paragraphs that should follow, I only want 3 of them written, and what I would like you to do is show me how a particular type of source is used by you, and then how that same type of source, doesn't have to be the same example, can be used in a global context, so by a government or a company. So what I've written here are 3 different paragraphs showing 3 different types of sources. The first one there is a quantitative research. So quantitative research is when you gather raw data from it might be from a newspaper, it might be from a survey result, it might be from watching people walk past and counting the number with hats. So quantitative data includes just raw data, there is no description added around it. Your first sentence needs to tell me what definition of the type of source that you're talking about. So in this case, it is quantitative data. The next thing that you need to tell me is that why you would use that type of source, like what type of context would you use it in, how would you use it. So at what point in your life would you use quantitative information? And in this case, what I've said is that I would use it when researching car loans, because when researching car loans, you would find out specifically the different interest rates that have existed over a certain amount of time through each bank, and by doing that you can work out which bank and which loan is best for you. So that is the E, where I've elaborated how I would use it, and so I've elaborated in the context in which I'd use it in, and the X, I've elaborated how I would use that information. then you need to look at it in a global context. So look at it through the perspective of a government or a company. How would a government or a company collect and use quantitative information? In this case, what they would do is collect data trends over a really long over a really long time. And the example that I've given is BuzzFeed. So BuzzFeed has surveys which they conduct where you press yes or no to it sometimes, and through those surveys what they're actually collecting is information about the people who are reading their website. By reading their website, they are providing you with access to advertisements. Therefore, they want to increase the number of people who keep on visiting their website, so they want to make content that's appropriate to the people who are reading it, so more people keep on coming back. So in the example that I've given you, the E is that primary data can be collected by BuzzFeed through surveys, and the X, how and why they would use it. They would use it in order to be able to inform themselves of the type of people who are visiting them and also the interests of those people. The last part of each paragraph is why is that type of research useful to someone. So what I'm actually asking you there is for generally, why would qualitative research be useful? And in this case, qualitative research is useful because it shows you data trends over a long period of time or over a large population, which means that you can just go, okay, that's what that is happening at that point in time, and that's what's happening in that point of time. So it makes it a little bit less descriptive, but you can get to the point a lot easier. So you are required to write 3 different paragraphs on 3 different types of sources. So you may choose primary, secondary and tertiary sources, or you might choose primary qualitative and quantitative sources, or secondary quantitative and tertiary sources. It doesn't actually matter, but each one of these needs to provide me with a paragraph that 1 explains and provides a definition for that type of source, 2 explains how you would use that type of source, 3 explains why you would use that type of source, then explains how a company or a government would use that type of source and why a company or government would use that type of source, and then at the end sum it up and tell me why that type of source is useful in any sort of research context. All right? If you're still confused, grab the template, have a read through the examples that I've given you. I've asked you a series of questions along one side and then given you answers that I would have written along the other side. This should provide you with an overview of what I'm asking you to write and also something that you can work from. All right. If you're still confused, send me an email. I'm obviously not in here necessarily every lesson, but if you send me an email, I will catch up with you to be able to help you out. All right. Cheers.